Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of UGASports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Jed May, the recruiting/team writer at UGAsports.com, and of course, Dayne Young, our executive producer of this show. Coach Don cannot be with us tonight. He's had a little some other stuff he had to take care of. Plus, we need to talk about the transfer portal, and that's why we brought on Jed May. Coach is keeping one eye very much on the transfer portal because he talked about how Georgia would be going so strongly into the portal, and we've already seen the results of that. But I've also been doing a series each night, either 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes, where I'm on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all the channels talking about the recap of the portal day. So today's 5 of the transfer portal. A lot of players on campus. And we've got one thread of portal updates at UGAsports.com on our main board. There are over 300,000 views of that message, just that one thread on the message board. We have a recurring content item on the front page where you can go and get all the latest updates. So you can read all that stuff from UGAsports.com.
Didn't you get the character limit thing today where like you had to update it and add more?
Yeah, so we're only allowed to have 10,000 characters in that thread, and we've had to cut it like 8 times because we've written too much. So we have to link to the main topic or the main content item and say, hey, for the older updates, go here. And that main content item on the front page, that main story has all the stuff going back to, I think we started that in November. Anyway, point being, there's so much content going on. We had to have Jed on to explain it. And Jed, I don't even know where to start. I guess we should start with who Georgia lost. Then we'll work into who visited today. And then we'll start answering questions. But let's start with the bad news of the day.
Yeah, bad news of the day is Bo Hughley is going to the portal, which it's hard to tell. I think I put this in my story. Like, it's hard to tell how much that means until later, right? Like, if Monroe Freeling comes back, then it's like, okay, he would have been your third tackle, a guy who could play both sides. Like, we saw him do that this year, which is very valuable, but obviously it's not a starter. Now, if Monroe Freeling goes to the NFL, then you're like, okay, he would have been I wouldn't say a shoo-in, but a guy who would have, I guess, gotten a long look at starting at left tackle because we've seen him play a lot. He got a lot of action this year. He played well late in that Tennessee game to kind of steady the ship on the offensive line. So then,
did he start or Michael Weenie start that game?
Did Ernest Green not start? I honestly don't remember. I thought
Bo had a start this year.
He had 2 starts. He started against Alabama and he started against Auburn.
Okay, so we can call him a starter.
Yeah, a starting quality guy, a depth piece you feel good about. And so then if Monroe Freeling doesn't come back and Hughley's gone, now you're looking at, do you make Juan Gaston a full-time tackle? Do you put Michael Looney out there? Do you commit full-time to the Jaw Jackson experiment? You could obviously get a portal guy somewhere. So the questions become a lot more. And as I told y'all today, for all we know, Bo Hughley knows that Monroe Freeling's coming back for all we know. So, but yeah, that's one that it's going to be hard to tell how big of a loss it is until we see what other dominoes fall, specifically Monroe Freeling.
And when you say that he got starts early in the season for where that offensive line was, I'm not sure how much of a brag that is for the guys that y'all were saying. Like Jazir Jackson, like he got a start, right, in one of the games. And didn't play hardly the rest of the year. It went so poorly. And that's not a shot against him. It's just Georgia early in the season was really plugging away to try to find who that offensive line was going to be. And it turns out the 2 true freshmen and Glover and Gaston were needed a ton for Georgia.
Yeah, I also think about the fact that Down South Georgia Dog says him leaving makes me feel that Freeling is coming back. Yeah, I mean, you get that feeling because why would you, if you're a 2-time starter, leave when you're directly in line? And I will say I didn't get as much time to talk to Stacy Searles at the Sugar Bowl as I would have liked. I spent a lot of time talking to Todd Hartley and then Mike Bobo, and we'll have our video interviews with them up here shortly. But when I talked to him about Bo Calhoun, he's like, yeah, that's a guy. Some of these guys, it takes them a few years to really come on. And he mentioned, some of the like Jared Wilson, who comes in year 3 and really tears it up. But the guy that he was really adamant about had a ton of potential ahead of him was Michael Weenie. So it's like Weenie's the guy. And again, I'm reading into what he says. I'm reading into tone. I'm psychoanalyzing a very coach who doesn't emote a lot. He's just an old-fashioned offensive line coach. He's hard as nails. He can't get a lot out of him. He answered questions really quickly and didn't give a lot into it. But when he talked about, this guy's a badass, he was talking about Michael Weenie. Then he said with Calhoun, takes these guys a few years. And he mentioned that he'd come on and he started. He said, yeah, this guy's got to start. So his best football is ahead of him. But if Weenie goes into it, then that to me would be a bigger loss. And that's not saying anything against Calhoun. He's going to go and be very successful. I mean, you can't 6'7", 330-pound guys don't grow on trees. And it sucks to lose him. But you move on. Georgia's now that's 8 in the portal so far. I'm still expecting a hell of a lot more, and we're halfway through the cycle. So where's the rest of them, Jed?
Yeah, and just one more thing on Bo. I think when you hear Kirby Smart talk about how young teams are, how nobody has any depth anymore, I think this is a perfect example of what he's talking about. Because if you're Bo Hewley, like if this was 10 years ago, you got some experience this year. Next year, you would be that same guy, that third guy, even if Freeling and Green come back. And then it's your turn to start no later than 2027. And now he's gone, and you're going to have to turn to like Akane Ogboko, 5-star freshman, really talented guy, could have to be a backup next year, A, because he's a good player, but B, because you don't have anybody else. This is a perfect example of that. But yeah, I think there'll be probably more, maybe some defensive linemen go. I think Janelle Aguero maybe is one that you look at only because of how things went late in the year with Rashawn Jenkins starting. Obviously, Aguero was hurt, but It's
also the fact that they brought in Khalil Barnes, who the Clemson people I talked to say that he's probably a better nickel guy than he is a safety. And so maybe that changes the calculus of what you do with that spot, even with Dinkins there.
Yeah, and do you play Barnes at safety? Do you play Dinkins at safety? Did you say tell Aguero he can play safety, or do you say you look at Zion Branch, and Adrian Maddox? I don't know off the top of my head if Maddox has eligibility left. I know Branch does. So do you try to convince him to come back even though his brother's gone? Like there's all kind of like you feel pretty good about yourself at corner, but nickel star and safety it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Doesn't sound like any of the quarterbacks are leaving based on what they've all said. Obviously people can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and all the receivers are. You look at where that receiving core is right now, and obviously we'll touch on some of the guys who are visiting today. But Colby Young's gone, Zachariah Branch is gone, Dylan Bell's gone, and Noah Thomas is out of eligibility. He's gone. So your leading just looking at the receivers, your leading receiver coming back is London Humphreys, who had I wrote it to like 18 catches for 260 yards or something like that. Again, just looking at receivers, your second leading returning receiver is Sakobi White-Helton, who had like 8 catches for 70 yards. So the receiver position is going to look a lot different, whether that's guys stepping up from this year's team, whether that's incoming freshmen, transfers, whatever. It's going to look a lot different at the receiver position.
Even those two guys, London Humphreys transferred in, and then last cycle with the portal, Sakovi flirted with it then.
Mm-hmm.
He might flirt with it again. So I'm just saying there's still 5 more days. I said this last night on my recap with Harrison. I think a lot of these players, now that the portal's open, we notice that tampering is going on. There were discussions about where Cam Coleman would wind up in November. We knew that Georgia was interested, and Georgia has his eyes on like 250 different players that they've written, long scouting reports on, and probably way more than that, but I know at least 250. And you can, in January, October, whatever month of the year you want, you can actually reach out to their agents. You just can't talk to them. So you can reach out to the parents, the father, the pastor, the girlfriend, whoever, and, kind of start those things. And I think a lot of these guys who are going into the portal, you already have a job lined up before you quit your current job. Tell people that all the time. Do not leave a job unless you have a place to report to Monday. And that doesn't mean they know where they're going, but they at least have one offer in the, to go into the portals. Like, hey, if you go in, worst case scenario, you wind up here at Minnesota Valley State making X, Then you go into the portal and all of a sudden 30, 40 teams reach out to you and you take 3 or 4 visits and then you commit. We saw a guy that Georgia wanted on the offensive line, didn't even make it to the visit to Georgia. He's already signed. Didn't he wind up at Kearney? Where'd he go?
Who was that?
Wasn't that offensive tackle that Georgia was looking at?
Oh, Carius Kern, committed to went from LSU to Ole Miss. Most of it's going.
I was about to say the reverse. Yeah, so he winds up at Ole Miss. I thought he was at Ole Miss. So a guy that they could have used. But point being, I'm sure that there's only one guy I know who's thrown himself into the portal without having any sort of landing plan. Big name wise, and we can mention him in a minute, Damon Wilson. But
in terms of Bo Hughley, one thing that I was told, Roddy, I don't know, this is middle of the season, is that every team is looking for depth on the offensive line. Every single team in the country, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, all of them. And so if Bo Hughley is looking at this situation of, I'm not going to get much playing time, if any at all, more than what I got this season, then there's going to be a lot of places to get more money than Georgia would probably offer him to stay. Now, if Georgia really, 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 really wanted him to stay, Georgia has the arsenal to get in that game. But kind of hard to do that for a guy that you don't expect to play.
Yeah. So to finish that up, my thought is with the Bo Hugleys, the Michael Weeneys, anybody else that may be thinking about going to the portal, those negotiations are ongoing. And so like with Bo Hughley could have said this 5 days ago, but he said it today because I think he's got at least multiple landing spots kind of guaranteed to him. So because Georgia's already worked on trying to retain all these guys. It's not like they're finding out today that, Georgia's not going to be able to offer me what I want. So they've known what the Georgia offer is. Does it go up when Zachariah Branch announces he's going pro? Absolutely. You had a budget there to work with. That's also the budget you've got to get on, say, a Trey Richardson. So we talked about who left. Let's talk about who visited, Jed. There's a lot. You mentioned the wide receivers, and there are a few of them on campus today. So
big receiver.
Tell the people who they are and why Georgia's going after them. Yeah,
there was Isaiah Canyon here from Georgia Tech, who is you need that big-bodied guy to replace Colby Young and Noah Thomas. Isaiah Canyon's that guy. Tech listed him at 6'4", 215 pounds, so he's huge. He visited. He's from Warner Robins and is a guy the staff they definitely didn't push for him out of high school. They might have offered him late, I can't remember, but a guy they're definitely familiar with just from being in state. I mean, he would have overlapped with Isaiah Gibson at Warner Robins, so a guy the staff knows. And Josh Crawford recruited him at Georgia Tech. So there's another connection that works in Georgia's favor there. So he's your big body guy. You've got Trey Richardson, Rowdy, who you mentioned from Vanderbilt, who is an interest. I didn't really know much about him because Georgia didn't play Vanderbilt this year. So, but went to junior college out of high school, then went to a D2 school, and then transferred to Vanderbilt this year and had, I think, 48 catches and 870 yards and 7 touchdowns. And he's a good kickoff returner as well. So a guy who keeps going up in competition and keeps performing well at every level he hits. And then the guy I know least about, honestly, is Quasi Gilmore from UCLA, who's on an official 6'1", 175 pounds, what he's listed at. And a guy who, was a UCLA offense that wasn't great, especially early in the year. But he still put up pretty good stats for the Bruins, obviously in Big Ten competition. So 3 guys who I think, if it's me, if I could only pick 2, I think I would try hardest to get Richardson and Canyon, only because they fill specific roles that I think this team needs. Georgia needs the huge body, the almost like a hybrid tight end guy that Canyon would provide. And then you could get a slot guy in Richardson to help replace Zachariah Branch along with Jacoby White-Helton, who we mentioned earlier. So, but yeah, very, very receiver heavy today. And then Georgia also had Auburn defensive line / edge, whatever, transfer Amaris Williams in town, who told one of our national analysts, like, yeah, Georgia is the first school I wanted to see in the portal. And he made his way to campus today. So definitely big guys in town at positions of need. Georgia's got to stock up at receiver, like we mentioned a minute ago, and they've got to stock up with some guys on the front as well.
When I think of Trey Richardson, guy who same size, same production, as elusive as Zachariah Branch. And then I'm thinking, wait, why are you leaving Vandy? You had 800 something yards, man. That's pretty good, especially when they got a 5-star quarterback coming to town. But hey, he gets to talk to London Humphreys, who's been here 2 years, and see how London likes it. So that to me, I'm like, yeah, let's take the 2 best wide receivers Vandy has. That'd be awesome. And I know that Quasi Gilmer kid, he's high on Georgia's list. I'm looking over some insider notes that I got there, and he is listed. Of course, Canyon too. And again, if you get Canyon, you take him away from Georgia Tech and put him on your squad. So that's a win-win. And this team you got to face. So I'm with you. You love to get all 3, but if you get 2, I don't think there's I don't think Georgia winds up in a bad situation there if they get any of those 2. Plus, you've got a couple slot guys. You can see what London Humphreys, if he played more in the slot, but definitely Jacoby White. That was every time you saw him, you talked about how he could play. So, if Jacoby White is your premier guy in the slot, then I think you're getting it. But Williams, that's intriguing.
See, my brain went to the same thing though, Roddy, is that those names would be good additions to Georgia's roster, but I don't see the impact with any of those guys that a Zachariah Branch had. And that's a special player.
I think Trey Richardson would have the same impact.
You think so? Because I don't see that. Like, to me, I would see the current receivers that Georgia had. That's where those guys would have to step up, whether that's CJ Wiley or Landon Roldan. Jeremy Bell, we heard a lot about in practice this year. Maybe it's Talon Taylor coming back, because we saw that Georgia made him a priority this season. Like, those are the guys to me that I think Georgia would be leaning on. And then you accent that with the portal, which is historically what they've done, because they have not gotten a transfer at receiver as good as Zachariah Branch, because it's just really hard to do that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Zachariah Branches out there. But when you're just looking at some of the yards they put up, I like it. And, they've been watching these guys go all year, because they identified them in the summer. They identified them last year, guys they wanted. And now when they're hosting them, they're like, hey, we think you can we're ready to give you a lot of money because we think you can contribute immediately. But to me, you got to get wide receivers and you got to get a edge rusher, multiple edge rushers. And I'm waiting for the day that Jed's like, hey, there's 4 safeties in town. I want to see the 4 safeties in town. Give me their names, numbers, addresses. Are they Cancer, Virgo, Leo, whatever it takes to get those guys on campus? Because I think right now you need some help in the secondary. You like your corners, but you went 0 for 3 on safeties last year for just guys who could give you a lot of minutes. And that's where you leaned on, like you said, you leaned on the guys that were on staff. You put Jacory out there. You tried a bunch of other guys, but and that's not to take anything away from Talon Taylor. I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. I think CJ Wiley is going to be a big guy. But as Jed points out, you've got one guy coming back with 18 catches and one coming back with 8. That ain't a whole lot of freaking catches. So give me a guy who caught 70-something passes just for the hell of it. I mean, anybody who's got over 60 in a season, over 50 in a season, I'm putting him. You are my starting X on G-Day. I mean, on the first day of fall camp. I mean, of spring camp, just to go with the guy that has the most experience.
Well, and like if you want to know what Georgia coaches think about its roster, follow these visits. They're not bringing these guys here to hang out. So
Exactly.
this is telling you that they're looking at it and they need some receiver help. Now, is that one receiver and they're bringing in 4 because the market is what it is, so it's hard to even get one, or do they need 2 or 3? And that's why they're bringing in this many. That's why they brought in 3 safeties last year, because they looked at that safety spot after Dan Jackson was out of here and they said, "Uh-oh, that's going to be a problem." And it was a problem, and they couldn't fix it with the portal, or they didn't fix it. They thought they were going to be able to fix it with Caleb Downs coming to Georgia. Like that's what the plan was to begin with.
Don't go there.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Just opened a wound, Roddy.
That's 2 years of too soon. Can he go to the NFL now? Or is he going to come back again?
Mm-hmm.
He can go.
Yeah, he can go. I don't know if he's officially declared yet, but I would think he would. Because he can be like a top 10 pick. It seems like.
I'm going to tell you right now, he goes number 7.
The Browns picked 6, so I wouldn't hate Caleb Downs as a Brown for sure.
Downs to the Browns.
I thought about you earlier, Jed, because I saw that Todd Monken's name may be in the head coaching chatter for.
I would do a lot of things to get John Harbaugh as the next head coach of the Browns. Now that the Ravens let him go, because you've got him as a revenge game twice a year. He knows what he's doing. Now they're not going to do that because they're not a very smart organization, but I would do a lot of things to make that happen. I wouldn't hate Todd Monken either, but John Harbaugh, like if that falls into your lap, you gotta go for it.
What's so funny is that Harbaugh is out because he wouldn't fire Todd Monken.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you fired Harbaugh because he wouldn't get rid of his offensive coordinator.
Well, when I read
what would be super funny is all of a sudden Todd Monken gets a head coaching job and would have left on his own. And now you're the Ravens and you fired your coach because of his intransigence. Yeah,
I read on
either one of them can come to Atlanta. We need a guy there. And if Agent Monken wants to come back to Athens, and I will just say this, people are like, oh, well, he could replace Mike Bobo. I'm telling you, when those two were nasty, it was when they were working together. Get those two together like when you had Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp together. Get Todd Monken and Mike Bobo back together. Todd can call the plays or Mike can call the plays, but Mike was doing the red zone stuff, and Georgia led the nation in red zone, and that's why Todd Monken loved him for it. And get those two guys back. But it's funny how many people in the Baltimore fans are like, the problem with the Ravens is Todd Monken. You couldn't pay me enough to be an offensive coordinator. You couldn't pay me enough.
His is a popular name right now because Clemson at least had preliminary interest in chatting with Todd Monken, but they were not going to wait around for his fate to be. Because, if Harbaugh stays, then Monken probably stays with the Ravens and they re-up that. So then they go get Chad Morris. And, man, does that just seem like a wild spectrum to be pondering a Todd Monken and end up with a Chad Morris.
Yeah, Darrell 18 says it sounds like our fans. Somebody on the board put the Spider-Man meme between Monken and Bobo pointing at each other. Yep.
We get a chat here from Parts Unknown that says Kirby needs to pay money for portal defense players. And after watching the Sugar Bowl, I would agree that the focus needs to be on Georgia's defense more than its offense.
And I think if you look at like Amaris Williams, like when Elo Modozi committed last year, it's like, okay, he's a guy, he's got tools, but he's also coming from Army. How is that going to translate? And honestly, it doesn't seem like it translated super well year one, right? He didn't do a whole lot. Amaris Williams is coming from Auburn, an SEC program. He's played for them. He's made plays. And yeah, you got to adjust to Georgia's standard of play and all that stuff, but that's a lot shorter leap coming from Auburn, I would say, than coming from Army. Now, all that said, Elo Modozi could have 15 sacks next year, like for all I know, but Williams will have an easier time adjusting, I would think, coming from a place like Auburn.
Yeah,
if he commits to Georgia, I should add. But
I had this hesitation about Elo Modozi, and it's just because it goes back to our buddy Jack Lunam, who, when he was a tight end at Georgia, John Lilly always wanted him to get bigger, put on muscle mass, get weight, but he's also doing Army stuff because he was in ROTC at Georgia. and I see the best Army guys are not big jack guys. Like all your Navy SEALs, they're skinny. I mean, I say skinny-ish. They're not, 6'6", 240 pounds of muscle. They're 6-foot guys, 180, and they're lean because their body has to do so much stuff. And I was thinking when he gets here, he's going to have to put on some weight to take on these SEC offensive tackles. So it might be, I'm with you, it might be a year 2 guy, but Williams, he's already been there. So I got it. All right. Thanks for that super chat. We always appreciate that. Let's talk real quick about our friends at Athens Ford. It is 2026. They have 832 new cars for sale out there. They still have fantastic deals for the 2025s if you want to get some of those, the last of last year's models, but they also have the 2026s. Go ahead and make a New Year's resolution to get a new vehicle and get one with a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. Don't go buy one from a Kia or Honda or someplace like that that doesn't give you a lifetime powertrain warranty. And the good thing is if you actually go to Athens Ford, you can get one with a lifetime powertrain warranty even if it's pre-owned. Now it has to have under, like 80,000 miles, which 99% of their cars that's qualified for that. And it can't be like a Miata or, a BMW or something like that they can't service. So lifetime powertrain warranty from Athens Ford, not from Ford in general, from Athens Ford. That's why you have to buy it at Athens Ford and not any of the other Ford dealerships out there. Also, I want to mention our friends at Darden's Delights. I know that the folks at Darden's Delights had a ton of people from our site buy their fantastic pies for Christmas and New Year's. It's a new year, new you. Go ahead and commit for the new year to get one pie a month. We need to get Darden's Delight to create a pie of the month club so that you could get the gooey pie, the cha-cha chicken pie, the Darden's extra dangerous fudge pie, which is phenomenal. The poppy seed chicken pie, the key lime pie. That one you got to pick up. They don't ship that one, so you got to get that directly from them. Or the butterscotch pie. So all the different pies they have out there, go ahead and get one from them. And of course, they also have the birthday cake pie that comes with a candle. You're going to have office birthdays. Go ahead and just pop them all in there and say delivery dates and knock out one for everybody in your office. And they got it taken care of. It'll show up the day before, a couple days ahead of time. Take it out, cut it up, you'll have it made. So reach out to Darden's Delights. A lot of the proceeds from the sales of those pies go to help kids with developmental disabilities, like Little Miss Darden herself. So check out Darden's Delights. And real quick, let's go ahead and jump in our last commercial night so that we can talk nothing but football. Let's mention our friends over at Atlanta Dental Implants, if you would.
That means you're asking me to play a video that I did not have queued up, but I can talk for a little bit and scroll at the same time because I am a professional broadcaster who has been doing this for quite a while. Atlanta Dental
Prior to having the dental implants, I was in pain and there were like loose teeth and, it's kind of a little bit of a complex talking or smiling. Having periodontal disease and trying to find a good place like this place to get it done is very difficult. I'm looking at the website and I'm like, wow, they've got their prices like right there. Top arch replacement, bottom arch replacement, whatever you need. Highly recommend it. ATL Dental Implants. I'm learning to smile again. Let's just say.
Awesome. All right. Now y'all don't have to go through any more commercials.
I have a broad question for you, Jed, and I don't know that there's a right answer to this, but when I chat with people, what I'm hearing is a comparison to around the country, how much a team is using the portal versus how much a team is leaning on high school recruiting. And the general thought is that Kirby Smart leans on high school recruiting much more than others. Maybe not as far as Dabo Swinney on the spectrum of using the portal, though Clemson's using it more than it ever has. Where do you think Georgia is on that scale right now, with the assumption that the Indiana and Ole Misses of the world are about as far toward building your roster through the portal as you can be?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think this is the right way to do it because I still think you want to develop your own guys, get them doing things the right way. And I mean, if you get these transfers, like, yeah, you're bringing them in, even if with this one portal window, you're bringing them in now and you've got 8 months to get them ready to play at the end of August, early September. But I mean, as we saw with the safeties Georgia brought in, sometimes that's not enough. And then you're left just, you're kind of screwed. So I think Georgia's more toward the high school, and one of the schools that's most toward the high school. And you see, or you're just looking at Twitter, it's all these schools that are bringing so many guys in, and it's like, and I had the thought today, like with a school like Texas Tech, where they're bringing in just a ridiculous amount of guys. At what point does that affect your high school recruiting in the sense of if you're going there, you're just thinking, okay, I might get recruited over from the portal every year, or even as a freshman, like LaDainian Guyton. I don't know if they brought in any edge guys or not, but I'm sure they told LaDainian Guyton in recruiting, hey, we're going to give you this money, but we're also going to give you the chance to play really early. And then if they bring in all these guys like David Bailey last year, then you're having to be behind those guys most likely, because they're paying and telling the transfer guys, we'll give you all this money so you can come here and play. So I wonder how that affects, at what point it starts to affect the high school recruiting, because at some point these kids will see it, and schools will start telling them, hey, they're recruiting over you. They're recruiting over your position in the portal every single year. So
you got to have the teams in the portal, the teams that are in the playoffs. What I thought I saw something the other day that said over half their starters are from the transfer portal. And then people go, well, then that's the answer. I'm like, no, that's the answer. If you're in Indiana, you've never had a good team. You need that. That's the answer. If you are, Ole Miss and weren't able to get a lot of
did Jed almost die on the air?
It got me choked up, Roddy. That was such a good point.
Yeah, well, see, I mean, when I bring the points, Jed dies. So
no, I mean, you're right though. Like there is no right answer, right? Like it's what you got to do to win. Like for Indiana's played football for 120 years, and they've never had the success they're having now.
Now they're really good. Part
of it is due to hitting on the transfer guys. I'm getting myself choked up. Hitting on Fernando Mendoza, hitting on some of the skill guys they brought in. And again, there's not a right way to do it. If you win and you can just the problem is, like, eventually there will come a year, whether it's 5 years down the road or whatever, when you have a year like Florida State has had, where you bring in all these portal guys and your quarterback's a dud, or your lineman, you miss on a bunch of your linemen. Like Georgia this year.
It happened to Auburn. I mean, the head coach basically said, we tried to we went on with Jackson Arnold. He wasn't good, and now I'm out of a job. So it bit him in the ass when they went but here's the thing. If you bring in a Gunnar Stockton and he has to wait 3 years to be the starter, or a Ryan Puglisi, or a Ja'Cory Thomas, or a Chris Smith, those are guys that you've had in the pipeline who get developed the way you want them to. And then if you bring in 3 safeties and they suck, you go over 3.
Piece it together. You're not screwed.
Yeah, if you're piecing it together, you got to be sure that those guys are going to be hitting. So it works great when you have a Zachariah Branch. You're like, well, there's a proof of concept. I'm like, yeah, you hit on 1 wide receiver and you missed on 3 safeties, an offensive lineman, a defensive edge guy. I mean, we can point to all the guys that didn't work out, but if you've got that strong pipeline of guys who you took out of high school who were good and who developed and blew up, So to me, it's I'll put it this way. If you're a coach, you can say, look, I'll just go and hope I can buy the best players that are in the portal, bidding against everybody else, and hope I get them. Or I can identify the right kids out of high school, and if I'm deep enough, I can develop them. So I think Kirby's system will work out better than anybody else's.
I mean, there's still some luck involved, whether it's portal or high school recruiting, in the sense that, like, Georgia had Stetson Bennett, and then it told Stetson Bennett to go away, and then it said, Stetson, come back because we need depth, so be a backup. And then Stetson Bennett's your 4th-team quarterback, and then he wins 2 national championships.
And then they tell him, we don't see you playing here after he'd come back.
Yeah,
we don't see you getting any real snaps.
That's a lot of people not believing in him, and Georgia having to get lucky that he barreled through that and was great. And to some extent, that's happened with Ole Miss. Like, the entire college football world could have had Trinidad Chambliss. He was at Ferris State for a long time. And Ole Miss brings him on to be a backup quarterback for depth behind Austin Simmons. Simmons gets hurt, and Trinidad comes in and is incredible. you can't tell me that Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss knew that he was going to become this.
Mm-mm.
And then he did.
They'll tell you they didn't know. So, yeah. All right. Let's get some of the questions from our from UGA Sports.
Yeah, from UGASports.com. If you ever have questions for UGA Sports Live, that's where we log them there. We did have Cherry Dog say, hey, shouldn't we be watching Georgia basketball play Florida at 7 o'clock? And the answer is watch along experience. You can watch that and listen to us.
Well, they're down 4 because I am also watching along. Santos Surreal got ejected for giving a guy a forearm shiver after he made a basket. So that's going to make things tough, but they're hanging in there so far. For those looking for an update.
That's tough though without him.
Yeah, that's something that's going to come back. I mean, let's see, what's the foul? They've only committed 4 fouls, so they're staying out of foul trouble pretty good. But yeah, that's not what you're looking for in your first SEC road game. I don't think
the Gators are favored by what, like 9, 10 points over
9.5, I think.
Yeah, so that's rough. Down South Georgia Dog says, just a quick comment, says, I'd put Caden Prothro out at receiver or in the slide.
It's worth a look. I mean, that's a unique, like, I think he's similar, or I think he might be more polished than Elias Williams. Isn't as big as Elias Williams either, but more polished than Elias Williams in terms of a route running skill set. But like that question said, he's pretty much a receiver that is going to have to learn the finer points of being a tight end rather than the other way around, for sure.
Well, like Ethan Barbour, like actually Elias Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Elias Williams is 19 feet tall, he was still more of a receiver than anything else. Sorry, I know we got other questions, but I want to hit this revisionist history real quick. Johnny Lang says, that the same Fernando Mendoza we didn't take last year. That was not a situation where you didn't take him. He didn't come. Georgia tried to take him, but you can't force these kids to go where you want them to go. Sorry, Dan.
My understanding is how that went is Fernando had serious interest in Georgia, to the point of wanting to play in Georgia. And around the same time that visit happens is when Carson Beck gets hurt. And then Gunnar Stockton played really well in an SEC championship win, and then leading into the Sugar Bowl last year. And I think there was some concern from Mendoza that he would start at Georgia.
Yeah. And Fernandez is like, look, I can go somewhere else, make a lot more money, or make, compared to what he was making, it's like, I can make a lot of money. I can go someplace where they don't have a quarterback. I don't even have to worry about it. So he stepped into that.
It sounds very similar to Jared Curtis now, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, he wouldn't be the first quarterback to do that. He won't be the last. Dylan Raiola. It just happens, where guys sometimes want to go, whereas not only do you get paid a lot, but there's no competition. It's a win-win for them. So,
you don't think Raiola's in the mix to come back?
Raiola's not in the mix to come back, and I doubt that Damon Wilson is.
I was going to say, yeah, Raiola and Damon Wilson can be the captains of a all burn bridges team that Georgia can play. that can be the spring game. Like everybody talks about how spring games are going to change. Georgia can play a spring game against like Raiola, Wilson, Justice Terry can play. Let me think. Julian Humphrey can be a corner. I wouldn't say it's a burn bridge, but Branson Robinson could be a running back.
Justice Haynes.
It'll be great. Yeah, there you go. Justice Haynes.
Caleb Downs and Justice. Barry Alexander. Yeah, bring them all.
Bring one of the Mays brothers back to be the center. Like it'll be great. It'll be great. That'll get a lot more eyes than G-Day will.
And you can let their stumpy dad coach it. Yeah. So.
Too soon.
This question from UJ Alum 95. Did this team in 2025 somehow manage to overachieve and underachieve in the same season?
Yes.
It probably felt that way because I do think the team surpassed expectations for the regular season and in winning the SEC. Georgia was a heavy favorite to beat Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. I never understood like that line because I thought Ole Miss was a really good team. But if you look at the talent on the rosters, I think it feels that way because Georgia definitely has a more talented roster than Ole Miss just in terms of players and prospects. But they didn't have the best players at the key positions.
I think it's different than last year because I feel like last year, Georgia won the SEC championship, but definitely did not. It wasn't like this year where it was an overwhelming performance. Like, it felt like last year's team was kind of running on fumes a little bit into the Sugar Bowl, and then you add a backup quarterback in on top of that, and it didn't really. Like, Notre Dame was probably favored, I would guess. I don't remember, but that felt like a game that Georgia was had a big chance of losing. This one was it was the opposite. It felt like this team was playing its best football toward the end of the year. They were relatively healthy, although you don't have your starting center, which kills you, and you don't have a starting defensive end, which really hurt. But and it just, I think a lot of people felt like this team was peaking at the right time, and then you add in the overview of the path where it's okay. It's an Ole Miss team you've already beaten with a coaching staff that's in shambles, and then a Miami team that I don't think is like they're playing really good, but I think a lot of people would feel like Georgia would be favored in that matchup. And then you get to the national championship game, and anything can happen. And then to have it end as quickly as it did is kind of it's jarring for me, because honestly, last week I was thinking we'd be in Phoenix at this time, to be honest, or Scottsdale or wherever that place is. So it kind of ended abruptly, given how the team had played for the last, since that first Ole Miss game, the last 6 or 7 games.
Well, look at it this way. If I told you at the beginning of the season, you're going to lose all your offensive linemen to injury, and you've had 4 of them get drafted. So of the 4 guys you have to replace, you're going to replace 4 of your 5 offensive linemen, and all 5 of them will get hurt at some point in the season. You're going to wind up starting 2 freshmen on that offensive line. That's going to be great for you. It's year 1 for your quarterback. It's year 1 for both of your defensive ends. It's year 1 for your center. You have to replace key parts of your secondary. Your starter in game 1 is going to be demoted to 5th string by the time we're halfway through the season. You have the same schedule that you did last year, but just in reverse. So you still have to play Ole Miss and Alabama and Texas and all those SEC teams that you had to face. But now, instead of going on the road, you get some of them at home. And you're going to lose 2 games. You're only going to lose 2 games by 3 points. You'd have taken that on day 1 in a freaking heartbeat. Knowing all the guys you had to replace, all the guys that would be this is the youngest team Kirby Smart's ever had. It's going to be the worst defense that he's had. You're going to be trailing in all these games, and you're going to have to rely on transfer wide receivers to get you through it. But I'll tell you this: you get to go 12-2, which you didn't do last year, and your only 2 losses will be by 3 points. You're going to win another SEC championship, and you're going to beat the brakes off Alabama in doing so. Will you take it? Oh, yeah, that's overachieving for where you started at the beginning of the season. But at the end of the season, you should have beat Ole Miss. You ran the ball down their throats. You had a tight end who scored 3 times on them when he was there. Losing Drew Bobo was killer. Losing Gabe Harris was killer. Losing Jordan Thomas, Janelle Aguero.
Ja'Cory Thomas for that second half.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Thomas. That's what I'm saying, losing him. Aguero. Who else were they out? Another backup defensive back was out. There were 6 different guys who started for you who were out by the time the game rolled around. Not saying injuries, but I'm saying even with that, you were deeper and you had guys you could replace, and you showed that you could beat them. And then you had a chance. You were about to win the game. In the last series, you're about to punch it in, and you miss. So yes, that was the underachieving part. So long-winded answer to that question. Yes, you overachieved and underachieved. Overachieved in the season, underachieved in the bowl game.
Another super chat from Parts Unknown says, Wilson coming back held to the no. There's pending litigation there between the NIL claim to have not been received in contractual things. I don't know where another transfer for Damon Wilson will leave that, but it will be interesting to follow. Because of all the groundbreaking litigation cases, we don't usually hear the ones about this school told me they were going to pay me and then they didn't, and so now I'm going to sue them.
But what would be a more college football in 2026 story than a guy transferring back to the school that sued him and that he is suing back? Like that would be so perfect. But no, in all seriousness, I do not see that one happening.
I'm kind of surprised he didn't go pro as well, because I thought he would have been a late first, early second kind of guy.
Dude, the way he was looking early in the season, thought this dude's going to make a fortune.
All right, this question from Mullet Dog over on the Dog Net. How much longer do you feel like Kirby Smart coaches at Georgia? Over under 5 years. The question is more driven by the current environment of college football and the additional stress that the portal and the NIL puts on coaches.
I'm going to say if they even things out, i.e., you have the same rule book for everybody, which currently you do not. Okay. There's some teams that they front loaded their rosters, and so they have their entire revenue split that they can use their NIL, and they front loaded it. And there's other guys who are not being able to do that. Everybody has their revenue share, but then you have just unencumbered NIL pouring in. So you have the same NIL problems that you did before, but now your athletic department is giving up $22 million of its operating budget to pay the players on top of that. So that didn't fix anything. You've got wild tampering. You're having to recruit your entire roster year after year. You have to recruit a guy 4 times in the 4 years he's here, if not 5 times. And you basically have different situations, different schools. And that would be what would cause Kirby Smart to leave. Because if everybody has the same rules, even if it's the same restrictions, Kirby Smart, his bailiwick, his raison d'etre, the core of his being is saying, look, here's the rules. Here's how I'm going to maximize our performance and our in every little corner, our advantages in whether it be scouting, retention, money, coming up with the money, whatever it is, as long as they can have the same rule set, he'd coach for 12, 14, 17 more years. But if it's going to be constantly changing year after year after year, and these teams have an advantage over his squad, over his system, then he's making $13 million a year. You do that 5-6 years. It ain't about the money anymore. So he wants to win, but if he feels like he can't win, he'll do something else. I mean, think about it. Imagine him. Nothing against Coach Saban. I think he's okay on College Game Day, but imagine somebody with Kirby Smart's quickness and witticisms up there. He'd kill it. Mm-hmm. He's a riot. So just saying, he'd make a lot of money just being a commentator, and everybody'd love to hear him.
Think about what pulls, because he's a football lifer. I mean, he loves this. He is fueled by coaching football. Think about what pulls coaches away from that. And we just saw Will Muschamp jump right back into the furnace of it after doing the family thing for a little bit. We saw Matt Luke go play golf for a year and then get pulled right back into it with Clemson. James Franklin gets fired, and then within 6 weeks, because they're all lunatics. It's not about the money. It's about loving the coaching aspect of it. If there's something to pull him away from it, if Andrew becomes a stud college player and he wants to do the thing where you can go watch your son play, to me, that's about the only thing, other than if he just gets physically exhausted. That could happen too. Yeah. But he's been here for a decade. This is his dream job. I don't think he wants to coach anywhere else, and you won't get this job back. I mean, I say that, but maybe it's just like Jed said with Damon Wilson. If you're good enough, I suppose you could leave and come back if you wanted to, and Kirby's good enough for that. I don't see why he would leave.
Back. Shut up.
Yeah, well, if it got to the point that burnout was the issue, I think he could delegate a bit more and be fine.
He can't delegate, and I mean because that's his advantage is micromanaging and making the most out of the margins. So it's got to all be the same. He can't do all that work. The perfect example, he brings in a kid he identifies him as a sophomore in high school. They bring him in for camps before his junior year. They offer him, bring him in for another camp. They get him signed into senior year, early enrollee, get him into bowl practice, get him into spring practice, his true freshman year. He redshirts as a freshman. Redshirt sophomore year, he starts playing a lot more, and then when he's ready to contribute, boom, he transfers to Miami because they've got a giant NIL check that Kirby can't match. That's what you're like, well, F this. You know, I'm not here to because it's bad enough when they were recruiting. This is why we used to go to all the camps, but they did such a good job of finding kids that nobody else had found that they stopped letting us come to camps because everybody else in the nation was just watching to see who Kirby Smart was inviting to Dog Night camp. It's like, oh, look, hey, they identified them. Now let's jump in and take them. So he doesn't want his hard work to go for naught. And that's what would kick him out or make him go do something else.
He's competitive as hell, though. So, I mean, if people start saying the stuff that the early chatter of, oh, the game's passed him by and he's not adapting to NIL in the way that other – man, like, that's poking the bear.
Nah, people are stupid to say that.
I've just seen the early chatter of that of people disappointed about one loss. I don't think they're actually
I've seen stupider shit for years. So.
I guess we can. This was intended for Coach if he was going to be here, but we can kind of wrap with this, and this may get back into portal as well. What needs to change for Georgia to win it all next year? What are the things that you'd like to see in the offseason that will help Georgia come August? That's from In Kirby We Trust on the Dog Vent.
I mean, I think you need to get a better pass rush. I mean, I think that starts there. I think this pass rush got. I don't know that the pass rush did get better, but I think it's more a product of like the coaches doing a better job of figuring out which blitzes to send at what time, stunts, and all that stuff. And that's great because ultimately the goal is to get pressure on the quarterback. But I think you need to get those guys who can just win one-on-one matchups. Find those guys, develop those guys, and I think offensively you need a downfield passing threat, which is not necessarily the same as a big play threat. Because like Zach Branch created a lot of big plays on those screens, but it seemed like more and more as the year went on, it became a lot harder for him to break those plays on those screens because people started anticipating it more and more and more and more and more. And Georgia did a good job with counters off of that. They hit that wheel route down the sideline with the guy faking a block a million times. But I think you need those downfield shot play guys, whether that's like we saw Lon Humphreys do it against Tennessee. That was great. Talon Taylor's gotten some downfield shots. CJ Wiley could be that guy. You got to figure out a way to get the passing game more vertical and spread the defense out more and make them respect that you're going to take some shots down the field.
A lot of people want to know what schematically you're going to do differently. And I think about it like this. If you were an accountant, you can do corporate accounting, you can do personal accounting, you can do budgeting. There's a million different things you can do. If you're a collegiate football coach, you can run spread, you can run air raid, you can run wing tee, you can run option. You can do it. You can do whatever's out there. Same if you're a defensive coach. You can run 3-3-5. You can run 4-2-5. You can run 4-3. Whatever even front, odd front, whatever you want. You've done it all. You've been to all especially the guys have been around as long as Kirby and Mike Bobo and Glenn Schumann and the brain trust that are in those rooms. You have a bunch of former head coaches and former position coaches in those rooms who are just even analysts. So when you get them all together, say, hey, look, this is what are we going to run here? What are we going to do? How are we going to approach this? It's always based off of your personnel. What can you run with that personnel? And when you only have one safety, you're limited. When you don't have a pass rush, you're limited. When your defensive line can't get a push, doesn't have gap control, you're limited. When your guys don't make tackles, you're limited. When your wide receivers can't get separation, you're limited. If your tight ends can't block, you're limited. If your center can't take on a zero technique, you're limited. So I know a lot of times we talk about, what they need to change. The number one answer, and when you ask any of these coaches, they're like, we need to address our roster issues. So that's why right now this is day 5 of transfer portal recap, because 3 wide receivers on here could change your outcome. Mr. Williams from Auburn could change your outcome. So that's what needs to change is you got to change your team. You got to get you're losing some people, fill those gaps with better players. That's what that. And here's the thing: I think Georgia's going to win it all next year. And I never say stuff like that. You guys know I'm one of the most pessimistic guys out there. But when I look at that offensive line, the tight ends, Lawson Lucky coming back, your quarterbacks, your running backs, offensively, you're going to be pretty nasty. You can fix the issues on defense. I think you should win it. And
I think you're supposed to say that they're going to go 7-5. That's the script, right?
It won't be Quintavious Johnson's first year. It won't be Gabe Harris's first year. It'll be the money year for KJ Bolden. Hopefully he'll have some help back there. Be DeMello Jones and Ellis Robinson playing cornerback. With Todd Robinson behind him. Rashawn Dinkins won't be his first year. I mean, JJ Henry
was destroyed.
Elijah Griffin first year.
Yeah,
just saying. And I don't get optimistic, but damn, you got to think that this team is going to be nail eat chewers. They're going to spit lightning. These guys are going to be badasses next year just because, and yeah, you'll still be young because that's what happens, but you won't be young like you were this year.
I think you always learn from what beat you. And so last season, like Riley Leonard's running plus the defense that Notre Dame had beat Georgia, like physically beat them up. And Georgia's entire offseason was, how do we run more and how do we stop the run? And Georgia did better in both of those aspects. And I actually thought this was a philosophical shift from Kirby Smart, where in the middle of the season, he says, you pretty much have to have a quarterback that can move now, that can run, not necessarily be a running quarterback, but at least be mobile enough to extend plays and go get some physical yards. Georgia made a lot of progress in that regard this year, I thought. And that's something that I think has to continue with Gunnar Stockton. The other things that have beaten Georgia, accurate passing. That's what Ty Simpson did for a quarter where he was unconscious. And then Georgia really struggled to come back against that. And then Trinidad Chambliss, that's kind of the like running around, passing, extending plays, doing some circus stuff.
That's pass rush when it's only coming from one side,
Yeah, okay. Like that's the pass rush.
We can handle that. So again, you're a one-handed man or one-armed man trying to jump rope. It's just it's not going to work very well. So also Gunnar Stockton, this is his first year starting. You saw the first year that Stetson Bennett had, and there were games where he struggled, game where he had issues, but then it slowed down for him and they went 15-0 and he was just dealing. I guarantee we see the same sort of thing from Gunnar Stockton next year.
Well, when they take the accounting of this program in the offseason, you do everything, right? And so the same questions that fans are asking, coaches have already asked this. They probably thought about it like coming home from the game. But is Gunnar Stockton unequivocally the guy to lead Georgia? The answer to that in terms of QB talent is probably no. But then the subsequent question has to be, can we get someone that is unequivocally better? And I think the answer to that is also no. So then you ride with the familiar thing in that situation. The one that didn't turn the ball over, they got tough yards, that won you an SEC championship. And then you try to increase in the margins around that. And I agree it's pass rush, but I still think.
You mean the guy that didn't punt against Ole Miss the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's pretty damn good.
I mean, like y'all said earlier, if Georgia scores you had 2nd and goal on the 3. If they score there, you're a minute getting a stop with a minute left from him being a quarterback of a semifinalist team, and then maybe he goes on and wins it from there. He was 7th in the Heisman voting. Like, yeah, is he perfect? No. Like that we all know that he's got stuff that he needs to get better at, but to go from this is an all-time fan favorite UGA quarterback to this kid sucks and we need to find somebody else based on one game where it's not like he was horrible, right? Like he wasn't at his best, but neither was pass rush, neither was the defense. The running game kind of dried up after a while. Like I think this Georgia team can win a title with Gunnar Stockton as its quarterback, but like you said, Dayne, it's you got to have the running game like you had this year. You got to have the offensive line play well, and you got to have a consistent defense. But there's no reason this team can't win it all next year with Gunnar Stockton as its quarterback, in my opinion.
And think about it, you also would have Juan Gaston and Dontrell Glover as their maybe sophomores instead of true freshmen. So,
yeah. Oh, and what play won that game for Ole Miss? It was the pass against DeMello Jones, right? And Like that's what
Yeah,
Kirby
Zion
Smart is known
Branch is on the
for.
wrong hash.
Yeah,
you know?
defensive back play and scheme. And so, Kirby Smart's attention is already on that. And I would think that has to be as much of the focus of the offseason as anything else is how do you get more consistent play from your defensive backs?
I agree. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this week's show. We hit the 1 hour mark and we got some stuff to do. And we'll have another show tomorrow night recapping day 6. Might even make Jed do it. All right, folks, we'll see you later. Y'all take care.